Imagine a world that constantly demands your attention, pulls at your emotions, and tests your patience. Every message, every expectation, every glance feels like a weight pressing against your mind. Yet, within you lies a sanctuary untouched, inviolable, and potent. This sanctuary is not built from external approval or distraction, but from deliberate solitude, the kind that shapes your resilience and sharpens your inner sight. Like Medusa, whose gaze turns chaos to stillness, your solitude can transform vulnerability into uncheckable strength. Solitude is often mistaken for loneliness, but the two are radically different. Loneliness is a reaction to the absence of others, an emotional gap filled with anxiety and longing. Chosen solitude, however, is a deliberate embrace of your own presence, a conscious decision to stand apart, to reflect, and to consolidate your emotional resources. It is here, in this self-imposed distance from the clamor of the world, that women discover their ability to respond rather than react, to observe without being swept away. Emotional resilience does not emerge from avoidance, but from engagement with oneself. In solitude, you meet your fears, confront your impulses, and witness your patterns. You learn to sit with discomfort without panic, to acknowledge anger without surrender, and to feel sadness without losing your foundation. Medusa's myth is a mirror. The gaze that petrifies is not a threat, but a tool, a mechanism for establishing boundaries, a metaphor for standing firmly in your center while the external world rages around you. Choosing solitude requires courage. It is a rebellion against societal expectation, a refusal to dilute yourself for constant interaction, and a commitment to your own rhythm. Each moment spent in intentional isolation is an exercise in autonomy, a strengthening of mental muscles that allow you to navigate life's chaos with clarity and grace. It is in these moments, quiet and deliberate, that the architecture of resilience is built. The world will demand, provoke, and test you, but you can respond from a place of power rather than panic. Be like Medusa. Claim your solitude, sharpen your perception, and let your inner strength petrify doubt and distraction before it touches you. Your emotional resilience is not a byproduct of circumstance. It is forged in the deliberate practice of being fully, powerfully alone. In a world that never stops talking, scrolling, and comparing, the ability to stand alone has become a revolutionary act. Choosing solitude is not a retreat from life, it is a bold, conscious strategy for building emotional resilience, clarity, and personal power. When you embrace your own presence, you stop reacting impulsively to external pressures and start responding intentionally, observing your emotions without being swept away. Like Medusa, who embodies strength, awareness, and boundaries, women can use solitude as a tool to reclaim their center, protect their mental space, and cultivate unshakable calm in the face of life's storms. This is not about isolation or avoidance. It's about mastering your inner world, understanding your emotions, and developing the capacity to meet challenges with grace. In moments of deliberate solitude, you can reflect on patterns that previously went unnoticed, confront anxiety without panic, and practice emotional regulation in a safe, controlled environment. Each pause, each quiet moment spent with yourself, strengthens your autonomy and sharpens your perception. It is here that the roots of resilience grow deep and unyielding. By choosing to spend time alone, you create a space for authentic self-connection, a space where you can acknowledge your fears, honor your strengths, and refine your values without distraction. This practice empowers you to engage with the world on your own terms, setting boundaries that protect rather than isolate, and responding with wisdom instead of reaction. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe and stay connected with more insights on female psychology, emotional mastery, and Stoic-inspired strategies. Like this video to affirm your commitment to self-mastery, And comment below to share where you are watching from your city and country. Let's begin this journey together, cultivating the strength to be fully present with yourself and ultimately unstoppable. Solitude is not emptiness. It is the deliberate cultivation of presence. For women navigating a world that often imposes expectations, judgments, and constant social demands, solitude is both shield and sword. Choosing to be alone does not mean rejecting connection. It means asserting control over when, how, and with whom you engage. In this deliberate quiet, the mind gains clarity, emotions settle into awareness, and the inner self can be observed without distortion. The practice is radical. It requires courage to stand apart, to embrace moments that society labels as uncomfortable, and to see them instead as the forge of resilience. Stoic philosophy teaches that we do not control the world around us. We only control our perceptions and responses. In solitude, this principle becomes tangible. Without the constant noise of others' opinions, you can confront the raw materials of your mind: anxiety, frustration, desire, and approach them with reason rather than instinct. Like Medusa, whose gaze establishes boundaries and transforms chaos into stasis, solitude allows women to become architects of their own emotional landscape. Each moment spent in self-reflection is an opportunity to observe patterns, recognize triggers, and build strategies for maintaining calm in situations where external pressures threaten equilibrium. Practical application begins with small, intentional periods of solitude. Start with 15 minutes a day to sit quietly, free from phones, social media, and distractions. Notice the thoughts that arise, the tension in the body, and the impulse to seek reassurance or distraction. Observe without judgment. Over time, these small sessions expand your capacity to remain centered when confronted with emotional turbulence. You begin to distinguish between transient emotional impulses and deeper, rational responses. Solitude also teaches discernment in relationships. Women often feel obligated to accommodate others' emotions, to smooth conflicts, or to maintain constant engagement. Through chosen solitude, you gain insight into which interactions are nourishing and which drain your energy. Emotional boundaries become intuitive, firm, and unassailable not from rigidity, but from clarity and self-respect. Like Medusa, whose gaze deters intrusion, a woman practicing deliberate solitude signals that her mental space is sovereign and protected. Finally, solitude fosters self-trust. In isolation, you are forced to rely on your own judgment, to validate your experiences internally rather than externally. This is the foundation of emotional resilience. Anxiety no longer dictates your actions. Social pressure loses its automatic sway. Each encounter with discomfort and solitude strengthens your ability to navigate the world without losing yourself. Over time, this practice transforms the perception of being alone from threat to empowerment. A woman who embraces solitude becomes, like Medusa, unshakable, deliberate, and profoundly self-possessed. Emotional resilience is forged not in comfort, but in deliberate confrontation with oneself. Solitude offers the rare opportunity to face thoughts and feelings without distraction, to examine impulses, fears, and desires with clarity, and to recognize patterns that otherwise remain hidden in the noise of social life. Women, in particular, are often conditioned to prioritize others' emotions over their own, to react to expectations rather than evaluate them. In solitude, this dynamic shifts. The gaze turns inward and judgment is replaced with observation, allowing insight to emerge organically. Like Medusa, who embodies the power of awareness, the practice of chosen solitude transforms observation into strength, allowing emotional currents to be felt without being overwhelmed. One essential aspect of cultivating solitude is intentional reflection. This is not passive daydreaming or avoidance, but active engagement with your inner landscape. Journaling, mindful breathing, or structured contemplation are tools to understand recurring emotional patterns and triggers. For example, noticing a rising sense of anxiety in anticipation of social interactions provides an opportunity to question its origin. Is it fear of judgment, insecurity, or unmet expectations? In isolation, these questions can be explored safely, without external influence, allowing women to develop responses rooted in reason rather than reaction. The more you practice this reflective discipline, the more your emotional responses become deliberate, measured, and self-aligned. Solitude also strengthens decision-making. When a woman repeatedly relies on the approval or input of others, her internal compass weakens. By contrast, deliberate solitude allows the mind to weigh options independently, to anticipate outcomes, and to choose actions that align with core values rather than social pressure. Like Medusa, whose gaze enforces boundaries and asserts sovereignty, solitude allows women to establish clear personal limits and navigate life with integrity. Decisions made from this centered place are resilient to external criticism, envy, or misunderstanding because they originate in a self-validated sense of purpose. The practice of solitude inevitably intersects with emotional regulation. Many women experience intense feelings, anger, frustration, sadness that are amplified when attention is divided or when societal pressures impose constant comparison. In solitude, these emotions can be acknowledged and processed without interference, reducing impulsive reactions. Breathing exercises, mindful observation, or structured reflection can transform raw emotion into insight, creating a buffer against stress and enhancing self-control. The process may initially feel uncomfortable, even confrontational, but it is precisely this tension that strengthens resilience and cultivates clarity. Finally, solitude nurtures radical authenticity. The world often encourages conformity, performance, and adaptation at the expense of the authentic self. Through consistent engagement with oneself, women learn to honor their preferences, values, and truths, even when they diverge from societal expectations. Like Medusa, whose myth conveys the consequences of disregarded boundaries, choosing solitude is a declaration that your inner world is non-negotiable. This practice does not isolate you from meaningful relationships. Rather, it enables connections that are intentional, balanced, and mutually nourishing. Solitude becomes a source of empowerment, not deprivation, a tool to cultivate the fortitude necessary to engage with life fully while remaining unwaveringly aligned with your authentic self. The essence of emotional resilience lies in the ability to withstand pressure without being consumed by it. For women navigating social expectations, career demands, and personal challenges, solitude becomes an essential strategy for maintaining equilibrium. Chosen solitude allows the mind to disentangle from constant external stimuli and to cultivate a vantage point from which one can observe life, rather than be swept along by it. Like Medusa, whose gaze establishes unbreachable boundaries, solitude empowers women to create mental space that protects their well-being while sharpening insight and self-awareness. Practicing solitude requires intentionality. It is not merely the absence of others, but the purposeful engagement with one's inner life. Techniques such as structured reflection, meditation, and journaling enable women to confront emotions like anxiety, fear, or restlessness in a controlled, conscious environment. By naming these emotions, analyzing their origin, and exploring their impact, women transform fleeting reactions into deliberate understanding. This process fosters mastery over impulses, ensuring that responses are measured, thoughtful, and aligned with long-term goals rather than dictated by momentary pressures. Another critical aspect of solitude is the cultivation of patience with oneself. In a society that prizes speed, visibility, and constant action, taking time to simply be with oneself can feel counterintuitive or even uncomfortable. Yet, embracing these periods of quiet allows women to observe recurring emotional patterns, identify habitual reactions, and consider alternative approaches. Solitude becomes a laboratory for self-experimentation, a space where mistakes can be examined without judgment and insights can emerge organically. Like Medusa's gaze, this practice creates a protective clarity that informs interactions and decisions in the external world. Solitude also enhances discernment in relationships. Women often experience pressure to accommodate, appease, or overextend themselves to meet others' expectations. By regularly engaging in intentional solitude, they gain clarity about which relationships are nourishing and which are draining. Boundaries are reinforced naturally, and the tendency to overcommit diminishes. The power to choose engagement over compulsion strengthens, fostering relationships rooted in mutual respect rather than obligation. This selective engagement mirrors Medusa's mythological symbolism. The gaze that deters intrusion does not repel connection indiscriminately but preserves integrity and autonomy. Finally, solitude cultivates self-trust and autonomy. Emotional resilience depends on the ability to rely on one's own judgment, to validate one's experiences internally, and to maintain composure amidst chaos. By confronting discomfort, uncertainty, and intense feelings alone, women develop confidence in their capacity to manage life's challenges independently. Solitude is not withdrawal, it is preparation. It equips women with the mental and emotional fortitude to face the world deliberately, authentically, and unshakably. Like Medusa, who embodies the intersection of power, awareness, and self-possession, women who embrace chosen solitude emerge stronger, clearer, and more capable of navigating life on their own terms. Solitude is more than a pause from the external world. It is an active cultivation of inner strength. For women navigating modern life where emotional labor and social expectations are relentless, solitude becomes a sanctuary and a training ground. It is a deliberate space where the mind can observe patterns, untangle complex emotions, and practice self-regulation without the interference of external pressures. Like Medusa, whose gaze asserts an unassailable boundary, solitude empowers women to stand firm in their emotional center, creating a foundation from which they can engage with the world intentionally rather than reactively. The first step in mastering chosen solitude is awareness. Awareness of internal states, thoughts, emotions, impulses is essential for self-mastery. When women cultivate the habit of observing their own minds, they recognize triggers that previously went unnoticed. The subtle tension before social interactions, the creeping anxiety triggered by comparison, or the quick judgments born from habitual responses. In solitude, these patterns become visible, providing the opportunity to respond with deliberation and reasoning, rather than reacting impulsively or from a place of emotional fatigue. This practice echoes Stoic principles. External events are beyond our control, but our perceptions, judgments, and actions are entirely within our power. Practical exercises in solitude can significantly strengthen emotional resilience. Journaling about daily emotional experiences allows for reflection and insight, while mindfulness techniques such as focused breathing and body scans anchor attention in the present moment. Even short periods of quiet, free from digital distractions or social obligations, help women notice and regulate emotional intensity. Over time, this intentional engagement with oneself builds the ability to remain composed when confronted with stressful, demanding, or emotionally charged situations. Like Medusa's gaze, this capacity acts as a protective tool, transforming internal chaos into measured clarity. Solitude also enables clarity in decision-making. Women often face social pressure to conform, to act in ways that appease others, or to seek validation externally. By spending time alone, decision-making shifts from reaction to deliberate choice. Each decision can be weighed against personal values, long-term goals, and internal truths, rather than being influenced by external expectations. The power of independent judgment fosters autonomy and self-trust, which are essential components of emotional resilience. Solitude strengthens the capacity to navigate complex relationships and life challenges without losing personal integrity or composure. Finally, solitude cultivates radical authenticity. In a world that often rewards compromise and conformity, choosing to be with oneself allows women to honor their true preferences, boundaries, and desires. This authenticity is not about isolation but about engagement on one's own terms. Like Medusa, whose myth demonstrates the potency of firmly established boundaries, women who embrace chosen solitude communicate their value clearly, protect their emotional space, and engage with the world from a position of power rather than vulnerability. Over time, the practice of solitude transforms from a tool for self-protection into a source of profound empowerment, enabling women to navigate life with clarity, strength, and unwavering self-possession. The transformative power of chosen solitude lies in its ability to cultivate emotional sovereignty. Women are often socialized to prioritize external validation, adapt to others' expectations, and seek connection as a means of self-definition. While relationships and community are vital, over-reliance on external affirmation can undermine resilience. Solitude, in contrast, fosters an internal locus of control, a steadfast center from which one can observe emotions, assess situations rationally, and act with deliberate intention. Like Medusa, whose gaze defends her boundaries, women who embrace deliberate solitude create an internal authority that shields them from chaos, emotional manipulation, and the compulsion to overplease. One of the most significant benefits of solitude is its capacity to enhance self-regulation. Emotional impulses, fear, anger, frustration, or sadness arise naturally, but their intensity often dictates reaction when the mind is distracted by external demands. In solitude, women can practice observing these impulses without immediate reaction. Techniques such as mindfulness, focused breathing, and journaling allow for the examination of feelings, uncovering their source, and exploring the most constructive response. By engaging with emotions in a controlled environment, women strengthen their ability to respond to real-world challenges with calm, rational action rather than reactivity. Solitude also nurtures clarity in personal priorities. In a society that constantly bombards with information, opinions, and comparisons, it is easy to lose sight of what truly matters. Time spent alone allows women to distinguish between obligations that align with their values and distractions that do not. This clarity fosters intentional living, reducing the tendency to react to external pressures or societal norms. The self-awareness gained from solitude transforms relationships, career decisions, and daily choices into acts of deliberate alignment rather than passive compliance. Like Medusa's gaze, this inner clarity creates a protective barrier against influence that does not serve one's authentic self. Moreover, solitude builds resilience through confrontation with discomfort. Emotional strength does not arise from comfort, but from the practice of sitting with discomfort, analyzing it, and emerging with insight. Women learn to tolerate anxiety, confront uncertainty, and face challenging emotions without reliance on external reassurance. This deliberate engagement with oneself strengthens the mind's capacity to navigate adversity, creating a psychological foundation as unyielding as Medusa's mythic stone gaze. Over time, these repeated encounters with inner challenges cultivate endurance, self-trust, and mastery over the self. Finally, chosen solitude empowers radical authenticity. By standing alone, Women communicate a clear message. Their inner world is sovereign. They develop the confidence to prioritize values over expectation, to set boundaries without guilt, and to navigate social environments without losing composure. Like Medusa, whose gaze enforces self-possession, women who embrace solitude cultivate a presence that commands respect and clarity. Emotional resilience, sharpened perception, and deliberate self-engagement converge, creating a state in which women are uncheckable, intentional, and fully aligned with their authentic selves. Solitude is not a retreat from life. It is a deliberate act of self-mastery. By choosing to be fully present with oneself, women cultivate emotional resilience, sharpen perception, and build a foundation of inner authority that cannot be shaken by external pressures. Like Medusa, whose gaze embodies clarity, strength, and boundary setting, the practice of solitude allows women to confront discomfort, process emotions deliberately, and navigate life with unwavering self-possession. Through consistent engagement with chosen solitude, emotional impulses are observed rather than reacted to, decisions are made in alignment with personal values, and relationships are approached with discernment and authenticity. Each moment spent alone becomes an opportunity to refine judgment, strengthen mental and emotional fortitude, and solidify the internal sovereignty necessary to thrive in a demanding world. Solitude is both a shield and a forge, transforming vulnerability into strength and reflection into empowerment. Ultimately, embracing solitude is an act of radical self-respect and psychological sophistication. Women who stand alone intentionally do not isolate themselves. They engage with life from a place of clarity, authenticity, and uncheckable inner power. Be like Medusa. Claim your space, honor your rhythm, and let your presence calm, deliberate, and sovereign define the terms of your engagement with the world. Solitude is not absence. It is mastery,